and welcome to another edition of HaloLife. I'm your host, BJ Martin, and today I'm excited to talk about the first few days of pitchers and catchers reporting to camp in Tempe, Arizona. Yay! I mean, come on, guys. This is awesome. We've gone through the whole winter with the hiring of Perry Manassian, with the Trevor Bauer sweepstakes, the signing, basically turning over our bullpen, additions of Cobb, additions of Quintana. Now they're all hitting the fields, the backfields at least, at Tempe Diablo Stadium in Tempe, Arizona. It's really happening now. And we've got our first few reports and glimpses from Joe Maddon and the other pitchers and catchers that are there. And the one player that immediately is standing out, not surprisingly, is Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani, we haven't seen him pitch on the mound successfully since 2018. That's 3 years ago. It's hard to believe, but 3 years ago he hit baseball by storm in April, going out and pitching, making 10 starts and just really dominating his opponents most times out. He ended up, getting shut down. We know the rest. He hasn't really pitched since then. He had 2 or 3 ill-fated starts in 2020. They shut him down, and he's really just been a hitter for the most part. He won Rookie of the Year. He's he was a consistent hitter in 2019. Last year was just a mess altogether. But he hit 90 in this first session. That may not be unusual. First time out, guys aren't going to be at full strength. But reports are good. He felt good. And Joe Maddon says he's not putting the limits on him that maybe were put on him before in the previous regime. Mike Scioscia was the manager. Billy Epler was the GM. There were different pitching coaches in place. Now Maddon's at the helm. And he seems to be just kind of going with the flow, letting Shohei do what Shohei can do. And the question was posed earlier by another writer, Jared Timms, put out there, do you think Shohei can win 10 games and hit 25 home runs? No one's ever done that. I think Babe Ruth had some seasons where he had over 25 homers but less than 10 wins. Maybe some other guys that had over 10 wins but less than 25 homers in the early part of last century or early years of baseball. And I think Ohtani can do that. And I think he can do that if he's healthy. I think he would have done that in 2018 if he was healthy. And I think that the Ohtani that we're going to see this year is going to surprise a lot of folks. I think he's going to fill in a lot of the holes that fans feel the team didn't get this offseason by missing out on Trevor Bauer or maybe some other starters that weren't acquired in a trade. And I think Ohtani can really be the hidden piece for this team, this going into the season. And I think we're going to see a revived starting rotation as a whole, but really see momentum pulling off of Ohtani. And I think part of the reason Ohtani struggled last year, I have a theory. It could be complete rubbish, but this is my theory. 2018, we all recall the spring training. He had a tough spring training, just was not hitting the ball down in Tempe. There were a lot of folks speculating, hey, I know he's a big acquisition from Japan. Maybe he should start in the minor leagues. Like, let's just maybe consider sending him down before he starts. And as I just mentioned earlier, I mean, he came out on a tear in April once the regular season started and played well. Well, he was playing before major league crowds and major league stadiums. I have a feeling that, and this is a theory, that Ohtani feeds off of that fan interaction, that having that crowd playing before a large audience. And last year was so out of whack without any fans in the stands, playing in these large cavernous stadiums without any fans, being so far from home in this pandemic. I think this last year was just such an odd series of events that I'm willing to give his performance last year a pass altogether. Just wash it out. Those 60 games, to me, Never happened. Obviously, they're on the record book in his statistical record. But as a fan and someone who follows and covers the team, I'm willing to just look past that and say, we're ready to go forward like we did in 2018 and see what he can do. Now, what does that mean for the rest of the staff? It's huge, but for a couple of reasons. One, the Angels have 4 pitchers that are in their projected 6-man starting rotation that are free agents at the end of the season. Griffin Canning and Ohtani, only 2 of those 6 that are controllable beyond this coming season. So that means Dylan Bundy, Andrew Heaney, Jose Quintana, and Alex Cobb have more than just something to play for to get this team to the postseason and ultimately win a championship. These guys are playing for their next contract. And, I'm not naive enough to think that all 4 of those guys are going to just have killer seasons and just go out there and win 15 games apiece and have ERAs down below 3 and just be all-stars. I'm realistic to know that that's not the case. But I am also encouraged enough in these guys' ability, especially Heaney and Bundy and Quintana, to go out there and put up the kind of season that can get this team into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs. Dylan Bundy saw the change of scenery last year. He was top 10 in Cy Young voting. If there was an all-star game last year, he would have been an all-star as a starting pitcher. The Angels haven't had that in years. And Andrew Heaney was on the road to get right back to where he was in 2018, the only season he pitched 30 games and was solid all year long. I think he can be that guy again. I feel confident the injuries are behind him. I think he's a guy who gets 30 starts. He's going to get you 13 to 14 wins. He's going to get you into the 5th or 6th inning in more times than not in his starts. And that's something for fans to be. And then Alex Cobb, again, I think he's kind of like that 6th starter right now. But there's a lot of upside there. I mean, he's got to change the scenery too. I mean, obviously he had a lot of pressure on him when he went to Baltimore. He signed a big contract coming out of the Tampa situation. He was a star in Tampa. He pitched really well there. He didn't live up to it in Baltimore. He had one good year and he suffered some other setbacks. Change of scenery is going to do him well. But all 4 of those guys are playing for their next contract. And I think they're all young enough to get a next contract. I think especially Bundy and Heaney, I mean, they're 29, 30 years old. I think that they're definitely going to be sought after this off season. And you look beyond that, Jaime Barria, what are the Angels going to do with him? He's like in that 7th spot right now in the rotation. He has no more options. He either has to be DFA'd and they hope another team doesn't swing in and grab him, or he can walk on his own. He can decide to leave. Or I think he could fit in really well at the back end of that bullpen. And the reason why, part of the concern I think every team has got to be feeling right now going into this new 162 game schedule after the 60 game schedule last year is fatigue, injury, and other things that could set back starting staffs as they get into a longer season. The act of major league pitchers going through a season, so much of that is about conditioning and being conditioned to make it happen. They've all been set back. Every pitcher's been set back to a 60-game schedule. So this is gonna be a widespread effect. Having a guy like Barria that can either act as a swing man, come in if one of the pitchers is fatigued, needs to get passed up, and the spot in the rotation could be invaluable. Patrick Sandoval is another guy that, as a left-hander, could also fit into that category. Sandoval does have options, and he may benefit more time at Salt Lake, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. But they're in a good position with those 8 starters going into camp. And there's some wild cards. Jake Faria is one. He was former pitcher for the Tampa Bay Rays. He'd had some good seasons in Tampa Bay. He's still only 27 years old. He grew up an Angels fan. He's from Orange County, and a guy who, when he originally came up with Tampa, was making starts. He made 14 starts in 2017, 12 starts in 2018. And, his rookie year, he was 5-4 with a 4.43 ERA in 14 starts with the Rays. He struck out 84, walked 31 in 86 innings. And then he kind of was used in the bullpen role in 2019. Didn't appear last year. He's a wild card. What are we going to get from Jake Fraley? This could be a guy who surprises as well. Just like Junior Guerrero, another non-roster invite that has got a lot of big league experience, played in the same division as against Joe Madden. Madden thinks highly of him. He mentioned him unsolicitedly in his first press conference from camp this year. He's someone he's eyeing. So I think there's a few guys there that can factor in. And then when it comes to other starters, we haven't even seen a lot of guys like Reed Detmers, our top pick the Angels' top pick from last year, hasn't pitched a professional game. He'll probably start the year, I'm just guessing, at Rocket City, Double-A, see what he can do there. I wouldn't imagine him starting any lower than Tri-City at the high A level, but I would not be surprised if he starts after playing at the alternate training site last summer, that he wouldn't start at Double-A. And then Chris Rodriguez, another top pitching prospect, coming off of injury. I would not be surprised to see him start at Double-A. Both these guys can move fast if they're performing well. I think the Angels would like to see what they can get from these guys and what they potentially might have in 2022 with those 4 potential free agents in the staff potentially leaving. And then the other question we have to ask is about those 4 potential free agents. Can any of those guys be re-signed, or will they be re-signed? That's a really good question. And I think that's something only those players, their agents, and the Angels front office know. We don't have any insight as to if there's been any discussion about extensions. I think generally speaking, these guys probably like to see how their season's going and test the market. You see that more times than not, and I think that's probably the most likely scenario in those cases. But that does also bring up an interesting point. Say the Angels are contending. What about the other teams that have potential free agents around the corner? That's, to me, a really good question. So if you're faced with an injury, if one of those guys goes down, the Angels are in contention, one of those guys is underperforming. There was a lot of buzz about, we didn't do enough this winter. Well, that doesn't mean they can't do something this summer. Obviously, the trade deadline is something that happens every year. Teams fall out of it, and they want to deal players. Well, who could be dealt? Let's look at that. Talk about that for a second. How does everybody think the Washington Nationals are going to do this year? The Mets have improved, right? They have Stroman coming back. Syndergaard should be coming back. DeGrom is the best pitcher in the National League, arguably. I think the Mets are going to be in it. I think the Braves are still going to be in it. I think the Miami Marlins are still going to be a team to contend with. I don't know about Philly. Their pitching, we'll have to wait and see. But there's a very good chance the Nationals could fall out of it, even though it sounds like Strasburg's doing well, Scherzer's doing well. They don't have the complement around the Corbin's there. We'll have to wait and see. Still got one of the best bats in baseball in Soto. But let's say the Nationals aren't in contention in July or August. Max Scherzer's going to be a free agent after this year. That'd be an interesting pickup, wouldn't it? I think he'd be highly sought after. I think, hypothetically speaking, you throw a Max Scherzer at the top of the rotation with a healthy Ohtani and Dylan Bundy and Andrew Heaney, and cast of Quintana and others. I think you got something that could take you deep into the playoffs. Noah Syndergaard, if say the Nationals are doing well, let's say Atlanta's doing well, the Mets are faltering, Syndergaard's back, pitching well. He's a free agent of the year. potentially somebody that they might deal. Houston, we'll have to wait and see how their season plays out. Some of the projections have them being the top team in the league still. The Angels and Oakland, second and third, kind of battling. I'm skeptical. Verlander has been their ace, and he doesn't seem to be returning. Greinke's still there. They still got some other young arms, but you know how young arms are. We have to wait and see. Could Zach Greinke be somebody that's dealt at the trade deadline? Probably less likely than Scherzer or Syndergaard, maybe. Another team that a lot of folks aren't expecting to be in is the Boston Red Sox. Eduardo Rodriguez. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So these are things I think we're all, as fans, we're all going to have to be mindful of and keep in mind. Those are just the pending free agents. We're not taking into consideration other teams that might be out of it with controllable players that they might be willing to sell. But it's going to be interesting to follow both what's happening on other teams' rosters that are out of it, that could potentially be targets for acquisition from the Angels mid-season. And then on the other hand, I think we have to look at the Angels' own farm system. Detmers, Chris Rodriguez, Packy Naughton, Jose Suarez. Even, it could be Patrick Sandoval that's down there. Keeping an eye on these guys as well. There may be a lot of answers from within their system. Think back to 2002, the one year the Angels won their World Series. Who was on the hill that final game? It was John Lackey. He wasn't even in the rotation opening day. He was a prospect. He was expected to contribute soon, but wasn't a part of the opening day starting rotation. Francisco Rodriguez came up 2 weeks before the end of the season. He was setting up for Troy Percival as the Angels took their first World Series. The answer may not be obvious today in late February as the Angels are starting camp, but things are going to start to materialize soon. AAA schedule was released today. The AAA players are going to start playing the 1st of April, with AA and Single A starting in May. They're going to run the season through mid-September. And it will be interesting to see where Chris Rodriguez and Reed Detmers are. Will they be on the Salt Lake roster starting their action playing in April, or will they be in Arizona for an extra month before they're sent to Rocket City? We'll have to wait and see how much that plays into where they start their season. But as fans, we're going to have minor league players to watch this year and track as they're working their way up to the Angels. So something to be excited about. At the catching position, not only pitchers reported this week, but catchers reported. So I think it's important to acknowledge the catching situation. Word from Joe Madden is Max Stassi is doing well. He's still, recovering from his hip surgery from last year, but Madden said he anticipates him being ready for opening day. Kurt Suzuki was catching Ohtani in this bullpen session on first day of camp. A good addition to the team. The most intriguing news that came out, I think, from this week's pitchers and catchers reporting was Taylor Ward, first-round pick, drafted as a catcher out of Fresno State, converted to a third baseman. Then he's been playing regularly in the corner outfield positions at the major league level the last couple of years. He is reporting to camp as a catcher. And this is something that I'm intrigued by and actually have been an advocate for the last couple of years. Once Ward developed as a hitter and blossomed as a hitter at AA and AAA after moving from the catcher position and made it to the big leagues and then started to hit well at the big league level, I started to think to myself, why are we not, here I'm saying why are the Angels not considering moving him back to catcher? He's part of the argument with his development was all the work and time put into catching was taken away from his development as a hitter. Well, once he's developed as a hitter, why not put him back at a catcher position? I'm excited that the Angels are doing that this spring. Spring training is the time to do this. And it'll be interesting to see how many games he gets into, how he performs behind the plate, how he looks behind the plate. And he can provide another extremely valuable tool to this Angels team to have a player that's multifaceted. The Angels are putting together one of the most dynamic rosters in Major League Baseball, and it's getting very little attention as being so. If you have a third catcher, or let's say Stassi's not ready, and you're your second catcher, and Suzuki's your starter, but you have a second catcher who can play third, first, left, and right. I'm sure he could play second if you had to, but let's just say he can play those other 4 positions. That's invaluable to a team. It's invaluable to Taylor Ward, who may be looking at being the odd man out in a situation if Stassi and Suzuki are healthy. That may help make the cut for him just to be that third emergency catcher. If they needed to make a switch during a game and you have to put that backup in there, then know you have another guy who could play that position is huge. And you put that together with a starting pitcher in Shohei Ohtani, who's your designated hitter, potentially hit 25 to 30 home runs, and you have a first base protege to Albert Pujols and Jared Walsh, who could be in the same boat, 25 to 30 home runs, and he could be a left-handed arm out of your bullpen if needed. He's on the roster officially as a two-way player, which is big because that gives him the ability to be used as a two-way player. I believe Major League Baseball put some rules into place to where you need to define guys as two-way players versus not, versus how you can use them. So having him defined as that, whether he's used much in that as a pitcher, is still provides you more versatility as a team. So a lot to be excited about. I'm sure we'll see how Juan Gratterall and Anthony Bemboom, I want to give respect to those guys. Jack Kruger developing as a minor leaguer to the big league level. We'll see how all those guys do. And then we can't forget Wilson Contreras, Christian Vasquez. These are guys that are out there that may be shot by their teams. There's been speculation and rumors tying the Angels to guys like that. We're going to have to wait and see. I'm not discounting Perry Manassian's ability to swing a deal if he thinks it'll help improve this team. But right now, on Friday, February 19th, as we're heading into the third day of training camp, I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think we could be really excited about seeing a healthy Ohtani going out there, being the first guy in Major League history to win 10 games and hit 25 home runs. And guys and girls, he does that. I think only Mike Trout could outplay him for the American League Most Valuable Player this year. Maybe Anthony Rendon, but we're going to have to wait and see how this thing plays out. But this is my podcast for this week at HaloLife. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did and you're watching on YouTube, please like it. Feel free to subscribe. Would love to share more content with you throughout the week. We have some other stuff that I'm excited about posting this week. And if you're listening on Anchor or Spotify and you enjoyed this, please share it with your Angels fans. I'm all about being here, covering the future, the current, and the past Angels. It's all about good vibes and Angels fans. Don't take today for granted because it was a gift. And don't forget to live your life 9 innings at a time.